Okay. So hi there, I'm Charlie Gracie. I'm the Scriever for the Federation of Writers in Scotland for 2020, and I have with me today Alan McClure, who's a novelist based in Galloway in the south of Scotland. And Alan was one of the 6 people who won the 20 Words for 2020 competition. So welcome, Alan.
Thanks very much.
Yep. Novelist and ex-teacher.
Ex-teacher for the time being, yes.
Yep.
In the middle of or just beginning a sabbatical year.
Yeah, good. Well, good. We'll hear a wee bit more about that. But maybe first up, you could read your story for us. Please.
Certainly, I'll do that. I'll just bring it up on my screen here if I can.
Good stuff. Advice is the title of it, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. Advice. Okay, here we go. It's what you mak it, son. Hey, slurs. Pished. Laid out flat. So, I says, it's a pig's arse, aye.
Okay, well, I'll maybe ask, where did that story come from, Alan?
Well, I'm glad to say it's no autobiographical, but...
well, thank God for that. That was an awkward question.
Yeah, I think it was... I'm kind of preoccupied at the moment with the fact that we were getting lots of advice from folk who are clearly extremely unqualified to give it. I'm thinking particularly of, political leaders in this glorious island of ours, and all around the world. There seem to be an awful lot of folk who are willing to, tell you what to do, do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. So, I mean, I just sort of distilled that down to a very, very short interaction between these 2 characters.
Yeah, it's one of these things. 20 words is quite hard to do.
To be honest, I mean, that I tried the thing. It was a really good prompt, because my first response when I saw that was, you can't tell a story in 20 words. That's not possible. But of course, as soon as you tell yourself you can do something, you think, well, if I was to try it, what would it be? And so, yeah, there's I wouldn't have trusted myself to try and fit any particular action or story arc into 20 words. So I thought, well, it's got to be a wee conversation then in that case, try and cram some character in there if you can, and then that was it. That was nice and quick.
Yeah, no. But like all good quick things, they take a long time to distill properly. Yeah,
that's it. Trying to hit exactly the 20-word mark is good fun. It's just a wee exercise in crafting something.
Yeah, no, well, it worked well in this case. And there's a few things jumped out at me as immediately, just the kind of humour of it.
Aye.
It's. But like lots of good humour, there's pathos, there's all that history, the family history in there.
That's it, yeah.
So you almost immediately can either relate to something or something you can surmise about the son and the father. So
yes,
2 men having a conversation.
That relationship, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And my kind of I suppose one thing is, this is a pattern. This is what the dad's like.
Oh,
I'm wondering, is this the first time the sons came back at him?
Yeah, that's really nice that you picked that up, because I think this is maybe he's maybe just had enough now of being told by this roustabout chap who's got nothing particularly to brag about, telling him what he should be doing. So yeah, this might be the moment at which he's just decided, right, that's enough.
I kind of hoped it was, because it sounded like a threshold.
Aye, I think that's right.
For the son. And maybe what he steps over is his prone father rather than the.
I'd like to think so. Yeah.
Right, that's it. I'm off.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, good stuff. Thank you for that.
Oh, pleasure.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, you're saying about it's all character, but it's not completely. There is a narrative in there as well.
Yes.
No doubt, it's implied, but it's also there. In the words you use, and that kind of the drama in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the kind of interaction that might have just been lost in a longer story. So it's really nice to just have it, nice to just encapsulate it by itself. So you do find yourself wondering what did bring these characters to this pass, and I mean, I know that this bleak humor is definitely part of it, but I don't find alcoholism funny. Obviously, but it's not funny. There's usually a fairly tragic tale behind it, So there's you know, I wonder where I don't know who these people are particularly, but it'd be very interesting to find out. Maybe I'll explore them again at some point.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what makes the humour in it nicely pointed.
Aye.
Because it's not funny if
no,
you
stand
back from it, but there's just the words that you use in terms of the son's response, particularly.
Yeah.
That is funny. No, good. So how does this fit in with your normal writing, or the writing that you're doing?
Completely new kind of thing to try. I mean, I suppose the closest thing would be poems, because I do like to write poetry from time to time, and I'd like to imagine I'm getting better at that as I pay more attention to what other folk are doing, and you know, joining the federation and things like that, and you know, keeping up to date. There's been some great poetry produced over the pandemic just now. You know, Hugh Macmillan's backroom thing that you had a thing in as well. That's just superb. So
it's been great. It's been a real,
just inspirational, you know, and to have something every day has been great. So I like the idea of distilling things down to their finest point. And when I'm trying to teach kids about poetry, that's kind of the only advice I really have for them. We're not too worried about rhyme and rhythm, and obviously rhythm comes into it, but for me, the essence of poetry, what makes it exciting is just that distilled, picking the best word. And if you're totally limited from the outset, then you've got that in your mind right at the very beginning. So it was an interesting discipline. I don't know that I'm going to throw myself into 20-word stories from now on, but it was definitely a nice thing to try.
Yeah, it was. It's good. It's a good. Oh, this 2020 was too good an opportunity to miss, I think.
Yes, indeed.
No, it's and you refer to teaching children, but so you're a primary school teacher, Alan.
That's right.
Not just a novelist. You can tell us a wee bit about Callum and the Mountain in a minute, please. But novelist, poet, and songwriter, because I know that is it Alan and the Big Hand? Is that?
Oh, that's one of the iterations. Yeah.
So a number of creative strings to your bow, which is great. And I've read Callum and the Mountain, so
that's great.
I can attest to it being a really good story for big adults like me, as well as
thanks very much. Yes,
children too. So. Yeah.
Well, actually, funnily enough, the Callum and the Mountain was I have written other novels before, but this was the first one I wrote after having started writing poetry, after finding poetry more appealing. And it's not a prose poem in any way, but there's a certain liberation with poetry where you're not too worried about correctness, or I think maybe you're more likely to give free rein to your internal voices. And one thing that some folk I'm delighted to say have picked up on is the use of some Scots vocabulary in Callum and the Mountain, and that was not. I wasn't making any point with that. It's just that's my internal voice. You know, that's my storytelling voice. I grew up in Aberdeen. You know, my father's from Ayrshire, so I've got a nice smattering of. Absolutely, from all over the country, and sometimes those words are the best words to use. You know, I think if I'd thought of a Spanish word that was the best word to use, I might have used that, but as it happens, that didn't happen during this particular story. But and you mentioned the teaching as well. Of course, if you're writing for children, there's no better practice than to be faced with 30 of the wee souls every day of the week to find out what their fascinations and their interests are.
Oh, good stuff. So what stage are things at with Callum and the Mountain? I know you were shortlisted for the Kelpies Prize. Sorry.
That's right. Yes. Well, that was a wee while back. It got shortlisted, and that was certainly very helpful in sending it out to other publishers. It had its first birthday yesterday, as it happens. It was 1 year since publication yesterday, and you know, I've been waiting so long to get a book published. That felt like the first big milestone, and that's been really, really lovely. It feels a bit of a vindication, as you'll know yourself. But then of course there's the possibility that it just disappears, that it sinks without trace, because there's a heck of a lot of books out there, a very crowded field, and lots of them backed by big publishers and lots of money. And I've got a fabulous publisher, but they're a tiny wee indie imprint called Beaten Track. But the thing has bobbed along nicely, mostly thanks to book bloggers and reviewers and people who've and also friends, you know, word of mouth. It's hung around in the Amazon bestseller chart and things, and it's been mentioned in the Times Educational Supplement, and it got a wee shout out in the in the Parliament. I think, you know, it's
Right. Good.
it's kind of, I feel like it's established the fact that I'm allowed to write now, which is really really nice.
To call yourself a writer.
Exactly, that's it.
Yeah. And of course, you already were a writer before that publication.
Well, I was. I mean, yeah, you mentioned the songwriting. I've been doing that for 20 odd years, and that's got me some fantastic experiences. I've made lots of friends through the music, and I've got to play interesting places like your own front room, which was good fun. And I do still carry on with the songwriting. So this sabbatical is, I am working on a couple of novels, but I am certainly trying to make sure I keep my hand in with the other things and not get pigeonholed into one thing or another, because I think the more different things you try, the more cross-pollination there can be between your different disciplines. And it's also quite good to have you know, procrastination devices which are also creative, so that even if you're putting off what you're meant to be doing, you can still end up with something that you've made. And it keeps me away from the housework.
Good stuff. So what are the projects that you're working on just now? What specifically are you?
Well, I'm working on a sequel to Callum and the Mountain, which I hadn't planned to do. I had very much perceived it as a standalone adventure, but I've been into various classrooms as a visiting author, and the one question that all the kids ask is, when's the sequel coming out? And so I kind of thought, well, maybe I wonder if I could go back into that world, and found it really lovely, actually, jumping back in. I mean, I'm only about 10,000 words into it, but just getting back into that voice and knowing the characters really well is obviously just greases the wheels a bit. So I'm also working on a couple of other things. I was working on oh, Charlie, I had a disaster. I had like 3 or 4 projects that I cleverly saved on a pen drive.
Oh, no.
You know where this is going. And I was up visiting my folks, and they had a break-in, and the laptop that the pen drive was plugged into got pinched, and the pen drive got pinched. So there's a few things that have kind of gone by the wayside, and whether I can bring myself to try them again or not. There is one other children's book that I'm writing called Malky in Malawi, which is all written in Scots. Malky in Malawi, about a 12-year-old lad who's a bit of a lovable bam, who's been given the chance to go on an exchange trip to Malawi to represent the school, because it turns out that he's actually much smarter and sharper than he's been letting on. And that's all written in his internal voice. And he's a bit like a kind of Scots Huckleberry Finn kind of character. He's you know, a rogue but with a good heart. And not too much of that was lost. I've still got most of that, so I'll probably try and get back to that.
That is a disaster. I discovered The Cloud a while ago, and
live and learn. I'll not make that mistake again. So I'm backing everything up on 3 different things now to make sure I can't lose it. But a few things.
One of the other things I do to save work is to email things to myself.
I do that too. So I've been frantically going through all my sent emails to see if I had sent things. So we have recovered.
Well, that's a nightmare, but it might just have cleared out the cupboard at least, you know.
In some ways, and you know, some of the 1 or 2 of those things were stuff that have been, you know, started and gotten a few thousand words in and then left them, if I think if a thing hasn't developed its own momentum, there's a good chance that it's maybe not going to. And so, like you say, if you can clear the decks a bit, you can maybe focus on the stuff that's actually going to get finished and going to be of interest to somebody else rather than just a self-indulgent thing. I think.
I wonder will some Torag somewhere discover a literary inclination with your pen drive?
They'd be welcome to it, but it's got a password on it, so they won't even get in. So it's literally no use to anybody. It's probably just sitting in a gutter somewhere in Aberdeen, I think.
That's not a funny thing to happen at all.
No, I know. Bit of a downer.
Oh well, Alan, it's been good talking to you about your writing, and I know it was good to hear you mention the Federation and the kind of the broad support that lots of people feel from the Federation. So that was good to hear that you feel that as well.
Well, definitely. I mean, I think that writing is a notoriously solitary pastime, but I didn't get anywhere until I started realizing that you have to reach out. You've got to. I hate the word network, but you've got to meet people. You know, that's when interesting things happen. Where no one's an island, are they? And it's so any kind of organization which brings folk together and, you know, shares successes and makes these wee suggestions like this, the 20-word story. You know, wee prompts are very helpful if you're having a slow day. You know, it's a pleasure to be involved in this kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been involved in writers groups for quite a long time, and currently am in Glasgow, and I just couldn't be a writer without the writers group.
Right, aye.
So that's I would certainly need that, and I know you've got involvement with the Bakehouse.
Yes.
Chris Salt's centre in Gatehouse of Fleet, and
yes, that's the other thing, is the opportunity to actually share your stuff. You know, the Bakehouse is a fantastic resource for folk who don't know. It's just an old bakery that invites poets, you know, world-class poets come and read. And there's also the opportunity for anybody who's got something to get up and share it with a very appreciative and welcoming and generous audience.
Yeah.
You know, no one's going to throw rotten vegetables at you if it's no good, which is probably just... there's a few things like that down here, actually. You know, in Dumfries, the Stove network is... They've been doing an open mic for a while called Brave New Words, and I've only been to one, to my shame be it spoken, but it was one of the most inspiring evenings I've had in years. It was such a diverse group of people, you know, people of all ages. There's youngsters going up and doing their first ever performance. There's old hands who've been at it for decades. There's a big representation of the LGBTQ community and people of various ethnic backgrounds, and it's just a really, really lovely, welcoming come all ye.
Yeah. Great. Places are vital, aren't they?
Aye, indeed.
Organisations that people put effort into, you know, that the Bakehouse spawned the big Lit Festival, as I understand it, as
That's
well.
Right. Absolutely.
And roundabout, Kirkcudbright, etc. So, and the Federation is similar. It's been a good platform for lots of individual people and other groups to get together. So yeah.
Brilliant. That's good work.
Nice one. Well done again. It was good to meet the boy and his dad.
Yeah, thanks very much. It was nice to meet you for me as well.
Good luck with your year sabbatical, Alan.
Thanks very much, Charlie.
I'll certainly be looking to read the follow-up to Callum in the Mountain.
Well, I'll certainly keep you posted.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Take care, man. Nice to see you.
Bye.